What's going on, Soul Nation, and welcome to another No Rest for the Wicked video. I thought it's a good time to check in with you guys, give you guys some news about what the potential release date might be for the next patch. That's going to be including both the multiplayer and the breach style content, meaning it is a significant update and one that we've been waiting for since the last major update in July. And I've been speculating the end of October, but based off of what the devs have shared, that we might end up seeing it shipped out to October and into November, maybe even early December. But I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, especially based off of what they are saying. And the good news is we're actually getting steak cooking memes, and we'll cover that here in just a little bit. That's a good sign for anybody who's following this game as closely as we are here. So there's a lot to talk about. We're also going to then do a hard pivot in the second part of this video to focus in on Thomas's stance on DEI. And DEI is a controversial term. A lot of people are going to lean one way or the other, but he shares some really good insight, at least if nothing else, for the sake of discussion. And we're going to talk about that here. And as always, we'll wrap up with our message of hope. Thanks everybody for getting into this video. Let's get started and let's have some fun. In response to obviously the Quelaag drama that we covered here on the channel the other day, Thomas replies that he just finished 2 playtests and they still got quite a bit of work to do. The next update is going to be quite important for us, so we need to take time to polish it. And Jeremy also chimes in. He says that while people are feeling frustrated that there hasn't been much communication about this, he says they're going to look into that because the user was saying that they weren't getting people to respond, especially on the forums. So hopefully they get that handled. Communication is a key factor, but the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with, the less they talk, the more they are focused in on the work. And that's kind of where we want them to be. They could benefit from having a spokesperson that isn't a content creator like myself to be able to speak on that, but ultimately none of us want to, get these small updates of we're still working on it. Well, is there any more insight that you can provide? No, we're still working on it. So it's going to be a challenge to say the least, but also that they said, in this case, Flamion says, all shortcomings related to communication are going to be forgiven if the devs can contribute to the wares update spam regularly. And Thomas goes to say, well, if we're going to do that, we're going to need a witty meme to respond with. And then finally saying, we don't want to be the kind of devs that talk the talk and then don't deliver the goods. Talk is easy, but we definitely can be sharing a bit more. So we're going to look into that. This is a good and valid feedback for them. So they welcome in this feedback, they welcome in this critique. And then finally we get the steak. This is a good sign. Generally, when Carol starts showing off steak cooking memes, that means we're getting closer. Like whether it's the next 2 weeks, most likely not. And that's where, from a predictions perspective, the update is not going to be happening in October. If I'm wrong in this case, as we originally predicted October, if October comes and there is no update, I owe you guys 5 members here on the channel. We'll give that on the next live stream. But I still would love to see them kind of turn it around. However, knowing that we haven't seen too much communication from them, knowing that we are in the middle of October right now, this is most likely not going to make that time frame. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of great video games out there right now. I've been playing Metaphor, I've been playing the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, I've been playing New World Eternum. Like there's a lot of really good things to kind of distract us while we wait for this next major update. But from a predictions perspective, I don't think we're going to have to wait till 2025. I could see them shift this in December, but that's going to be a tough month regardless because everybody kind of gets set into the holiday mode. November could still be a reasonable time frame, especially with the Thanksgiving break that is upcoming. Now, we'll have to wait and see. And I'm personally rooting for November, but as soon as we start getting more steak cooking memes, that's going to help me as a developer really kind of project out the confidence level and what they're thinking. So keep it locked here to the channel if you guys like No Rest for the Wicked and ARPGs and these kind of discussions. And we've been dipping into the culture war because why not? Anyhow, thank you guys so much. If you have subscribed, we got a couple of legends here that are new to the channel. Welcome in. Let me know if I earn your sub in the comments. I always like to welcome you guys to the channel. Lots to do, lots to say, lots to cover. And now let's shift into the most likely going to piss some of you guys off conversation. just because that's just the way the internet works. Now, I always want to just make sure I preface this. It's like the ideas on paper for DEI, they sound good. It's like, yeah, let's make the world have more opportunities for more people. I'm all on board for it. Problem is the corporatization, and in a way, it's very Orwellian. It's that, yes, it is the ministry of truth, and they name it something really nice and people can get behind. But then when you actually look at the fruits of it, it doesn't actually stand the test of time. We should judge these actions by their fruits, not how well they market themselves to people. And I'm really happy to see a lot of people on the left actually calling this out for the grift that it is. But Thomas goes in to kind of share his thoughts and his feelings about this. And I think this is something awesome, because the best way we can kind of highlight the goods and the bads, we can have that economy of ideas, is to have that contrast. So you have these DEI heavy laden studios, and they haven't been producing games that people want to play. Thomas and Moon Studios is taking the other approach, going with that merit focus, and people want to play their game. And hopefully what this ends up meaning is people can kind of look at the market and say, what is working out for the best, so that players are happy, studios are healthy, and people are able to succeed. Because again, being that and I've seen this be brought up multiple times, the money that they spend on these DEI initiatives that doesn't actually unfortunately benefit, they should just pay somebody who's not making that much money. They should actually pay these developers what they're worth, but they do this to check a box so they can say that they've done something good from a marketing perspective. It's PR. It's PR at the end of the day. And that is one of the big reasons why I'm so happy more and more people on the left are pushing back against it. Anyway, this is what Thomas has to say. He says, I'm still every now and then getting questions on whether we force DEI stuff into the games that we're making. So let me make it very clear once and for all. Absolutely not. I find that entire approach perverted. I'm an artist. I would rather quit than have someone else tell me what we should do with our art. That would make a mockery out of everything I believe in. I've been very much outspoken on how I feel about consulting, and I still feel very strongly that if people haven't lived the process and don't have to think about the issues at hand 24/7, they will always deliver worse work than those who do. When it comes to the stories we're telling, I always approach it from a human angle first and foremost, and I'll let the story tell me where it needs to go. If it tickles me to have a gay character in our story and I feel like that character would be fascinating, then I'll push for that. But I would never make a character gay simply because of some outside party told me that it's hip to do and that we might face backlash if we don't. Art fundamentally doesn't work that way. Everyone has a story inside them, that they are based on their experiences, that they went through in their lives. And to me, that elevates art beyond just a craft, that when it is that you reflected enough to know who you are and then let those stories out, because those experiences that you lived through are most likely experiences that other people can relate to, and they will speak to them in a profound manner because they're real. Ori and the Blind Forest in many ways was about me reflecting on what it was like to see my father dying of cancer when I was 10 and being grateful to my mom. Wisps, on the other hand, was written when we were all starting to have kids in the studio, and I imagined what it would be like to have a kid with a disability. I wrote the first draft of No Rest for the Wicked quite some time ago, and that also came from a very specific place. I hope that this clarifies it for everybody, as I've had to learn the hard way what it means to be an artist, and I never let anyone take that away from me. Now, obviously, this gathered a lot of attention over on Twitter, and I thought I would highlight one comment and one reply from Thomas in this case. Savvy says, "Thank you so much for sharing your words. I was talking with someone who was supposed to be creative director who insisted he didn't think people could write authentic stories without having some lived experiences. It was very strange, and I thought, my goodness, how can these characters be created then by this person? I don't know who imposed these restrictions on people, or the idea that someone can't write a type of character without having some consultant. The free market determines success, but I really do believe that every single person is capable of telling a story. The bogus sensitivity readers and concept of globalization is shifting creatives Someone will always be offended by art, even the most innocent of images, and it is sad. I really thought by 2024 things would be better than 2009, not worse. It isn't even enough for those type who demand censorship and checkboxes just to have forced diversity. They won't even let you tell something they deem problematic. It is crazy how they go off about these things and they don't like, instead of realizing fiction is just that. Fiction, a glorious playground, a fantasy, and make-believe. And Thomas replies to Savvy saying, "How did Shakespeare write all these fascinating female characters then? It does boggle the mind." Now, I want to take a moment to highlight a clip from Breaking Points. I'm going to include a link in the description if you guys want to go watch this full one. There are a lot of resources online that truly do highlight it, and I would encourage you guys, especially if you're in the pro-DEI camp, to actually look at this with a fine-tooth comb and let's break it down, because I think there are solutions that we can work to. But I'm going to let Breaking Points kind of take it over for just a little bit, and then we'll come back with the message of hope.
All the causes that I've been early to. Perhaps the call I'm most proud of to be attached to is calling critical race theory and many of the hucksters complete grifters from the beginning. Nobody much cared in 2018 and 2019 about critical race theory or emerging con artists like Nicole Hannah-Jones and Ibram Kendi, but I had my eye on them. Those who want to see can go back and watch rising coverage from at that time of me calling them out if you're interested. I saw them clearly for what they were, nothing more than modern-day race hucksters capitalizing on the guilt of white liberals to both enrich themselves, advance their careers, and destroy any social fabric left in this country that is not obsessed with race. Jones, Kendi, Robin DiAngelo, they had one single mission: convince the elites in this country there is one source for all of our problems and nothing else: race. This is reductive and a false view of history, but it was successful. Ultra-liberals on campuses were beginning to be indoctrinated. Slowly but surely, an infrastructure was built up all throughout 2018 and 19 for the perfect moment. And luckily for them, it came with the BLM riots of 2020. White liberals and corporations suddenly began playing Olympics to see who could out-woke or out-virtue signal each other, and these people were happy to take their money. Kendi especially. Kendi is unsurprisingly the dumbest and yet the most successful amongst them. He's written several books about, quote, anti-racism. He advocates for such ideas as a constitutional anti-racist amendment, literal race discrimination in favor of blacks, and brainwashing children from a young age about his view of race. Every genderqueer bookstore in this country has his book very at the front row, and billionaires have flooded this man with money to continue his important work. He decided to use that money in conjunction with Boston University to create a new center, and henceforth in 2020, the Center for Anti-Racist Research was born. It sounds as smart as the Zoolander one. Now, endowed with tens of millions of dollars and a new mandate to research and promote the anti-racist cause. 3 years later, though, it turns out the entire thing was as much of a grift and as a con as I thought from the very beginning. More than half of the employees at the center were abruptly fired just recently after Kendi has apparently burned through much of $43 million. In that time period, they have produced no real research, applied for and given grants with no work output, no real original work to speak of. In fact, one professor at the university said Kendi, quote, had a pattern of amassing grants without any commitment to producing the research obligated, adding that to the best of my knowledge, there is no good faith commitment to fulfilling funded research projects. She wrote that in 2021. Instead of thanking her, the university retaliated against her, refusing to even renew her affiliation. The grift is now so obvious, Boston University has had to launch an official inquiry into Kendi's leadership. They note that originally the center was supposed to track racial disparities nationwide, have a graduate degree program. Now so obvious, Boston University has had to launch an official inquiry into Kendi's leadership.
There's always going to be a lot of work to be done, and there's going to be people who unfortunately get caught up and hurt by all of these things. That's why I want to always bring these conversations to you guys in the most open and honest way that I know how to. I think that is really the solution. I think the solution is more discussion, more debate, not more censorship and not more bullying that happens online. That's a big reason why I do what I do. And I thank you guys for sticking through all of this. I know it's not necessarily what everybody wants when they hit subscribe to the channel, but that's something that you get. And I appreciate it if you decide to stick around. But let's pivot now to two things I want to talk about for our message of hope. There's two quotes that I want to kind of highlight to you guys, just as something for us to all, meditate on over the course of the next time you come and hang out and get another message of hope in this case. First and foremost, courage is not having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have the strength. And Theodore Roosevelt said that. And also, another quote, "A good man would prefer to be defeated rather than to defeat injustice by evil means." And that's by Sallust. These two things, I think, are very true to our society today, things that we struggle with today. I just saw an unfortunate story about another guy who ended up self-deleting. And that breaks my heart, because that is essentially what is the most important work that we can do and encourage each other to be as strong as we can. And that's why I wanted to highlight the Theodore Roosevelt quote, is that it isn't having the strength to go on, it's going on despite not having that strength. And the thing is about that still, and what you hear me say time and time again, is that you actually, I think, have that strength. It just is buried deep within you, and it is sleeping, meaning that if you do not believe you have the strength, if you do not believe that you can, you're right. Whether you can or you can't, whatever you tell yourself, you're going to be right in the end. So that's why I want to encourage you guys to believe in yourself and to know that you have this strength within you. It's going to take maybe a little bit of coaxing to come out as my voice cracks because of puberty. Why not? It is what it is. But it might take some coaxing. It might take some training. It might take you kind of saying, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. You keep telling yourself that enough, you're going to look back with enough time and be like, wow, I did. And that doesn't also mean that you're going to be successful. And that's where the second quote comes into play. We're not called to be victorious. We're not called to actually be successful, but we're called to try. And it's in that effort that we see the people that we look up to as the biggest failures of all time. They failed and failed and failed and failed. But the thing that actually separates them from the people you never heard of is they didn't quit on themselves. They just kept at it in a way of like, I'm going to keep pressing forward regardless of the results, regardless of this. And yes, I'm going to take any defeat and learn from it. And the other part of that, though, is that defeat, we don't want to be unjust. We don't want to do evil things just for the sake of victory, because victory isn't really for us to decide. Victory's already happened. Victory happened on the cross. Our job in this case is to love each other and trust in that. So that is today's message. I hope that you got something good from it. I hope that these quotes can help give you some energy and some fuel to pick up the pieces and to figure out what it is that you need to do next. It could be something so simple. And that is where you want to break all these things down into baby steps. If you struggle with ADHD, as this is a rising problem that people have, and problem is probably not the right word, but people think differently and process things differently. Look up some really good resources online. Body doubling is a great way of kind of helping to motivate you to do various different things. There's some hacks that you can kind of put into your life and your corner that can really help you find that motivation to succeed. You can also look at it from a seasonal depression perspective. There's so many different ways. Like I don't know you individually and your struggle individually, but I know what it is to struggle. I know what it is to have that depression and not be able to get out of bed and get moving. The question is then, okay, you're there. How do you do it? And it's breaking it down into the simplest of terms, finding hacks that help motivate you to get moving, and that success begets success. That victory begets victory. And I mean that achieving something will give you that endorphins and that dopamine kick that can help. And there's also really great resources in terms of therapy and more. So don't give up on yourself. Focus in on it. Figure out something. Try new things to see what works, and things that don't work, put them to the side, and then continue to be curious about how your brain works and how you process. Dive deep into who you are and find the motivation so that you can not only survive, but you can thrive. Anyway, that's an extra little thing all of a sudden. I appreciate you guys hanging out for this video, and I really hope that you got something good out of it. But I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, take care.